Okay, so it's actually the next weekend now, and let's catch up on where I got to. So, we got the outer flange off the axle. Now the next bit is going to be to get that bearing out. So in order to do that, I want to take the axle off the car. So I've taken the leaf spring bolt out, taken the shock off the bottom of the whatever that is, vertical thingy holder thing, and I've taken the radius arm off as well. So now it's just a case of undoing the 4 bolts, bolting the axle onto the diff and pulling that out. So 16th bolts, so need 1/2-inch spanners, and now to the slow and awkward process of just getting these undone. Oh, the axle is definitely loose. Just right, that'll stop it. Perfect. Okay, so there we have one axle, or half shaft if you're from the US. So let's have a little look-see at the seams that goes into the diff, or onto the diff. Have your universal, that's grubby, but does seem to be freely moving. That's pressed onto the axle itself and looks to be pinned in place. Then you have a rather dirty axle that I'll give a good clean up. Then we have the back of the bearing with the wheel stop, and the hub itself, and housed in the hub you can see the outer bearing, and there's a needle bearing inside there as well, and the upright. It's all old, but should clean up alright. So I shall now proceed with getting the bearings out and then cleaning everything up. Okay, before we get to the bearing, I'm just going to grease this universal joint. Have the grub screw protecting everything. Okay. Have here one extended grease nipple. Specifically for greasing universal joints. 7mm, just to confuse things. There we go. Right, that's in. Okay. Now, I've just always been told you just do this till you've pushed out as much of the old grease as you can. I've found in the recent universals I've done on this car that often the grease tends to come out of some joints more than others. Just take that grease nipple out. Go. Clock. Put the grub screw back in. Quite awkward to line up. Here we go. Just go around, clean this up, and leave behind just a thin layer of grease over everything for a bit of protection. Okay, now the instructions from the original workshop manual, which I'm going to try and follow, say to get this bearing out, first you drift the hub backwards further onto the axle and then pull the bearing off once it's clear. So I have this handy slab of lead that I use for drifting things without damaging them, so let's give this a go. It's working. Was working. Right, I've got enough clearance now to have a look at what we're getting stuck on. So despite the instructions from the manual, we have a look in here, using my white mark that I made just to track it, you can see where my finger is there. You can see the dry portion of the axle. There's actually a little change in diameter, so this seal is actually sitting up against a slight shoulder. Whether that's by design or from where, I don't know, but that seal does not want to go any further along the axle. So now we might have to try just pulling the hub and bearing off together. On to plan B. First thing I want to do is take the upright off the hub. So that requires getting the bolt out of it. Okay. Which is apparently a lot easier said than done. It is actually turning slightly. Ooh. Cool. Might be a bit much Weebix. So that's something. It's not a complete solid block. It has actually freed up the movement quite a bit. Interestingly, oops. So let's however, it isn't coming out as such. No. What I think is happening here, if we have a look, there is actually this. It's actually in here, I believe, a steel pin. I think it's called a gudgeon pin. I could be wrong. That goes through the trunnion that the bolt goes through, and I'm betting it's probably rusted to that, and that is too big to come out the holes in the uprights. So the next thing I'll need to try is actually removing the hub from the upright by cutting the bolt. Now that's going to unfortunately mean cutting that end off and the head off, which I'll probably need to do by cutting through these spacing washers on either side to get down to the bolt itself on the inside of the upright. So that'll be the next step. Let's see how that goes. So after finding a decent blade for my reciprocating saw, I managed to actually separate the trunnion from the upright. Yay! So let's have a look at what I found. Okay, so we can see here that remaining in the trunnion, I haven't taken them out yet, are the nylon inserts on both sides. Focus. And what came out of it all was this run of parts. So you can see here we have the outer washer, inner washer, and the remains of one of the seals, and same again on the other side, and these are the 3 parts of the bolt after I cut it. So you can see, like I guessed, the bolt is, there we go, rusted solid into the spacer, so that's why I couldn't get it out. And interestingly, for those who know a little bit about how this is all meant to work, I think this was assembled wrong, which could have been half the problem with the bolt rusting in the spacer. I'm not sure if that's a common problem or whether it's just because this was assembled wrong. So I think what's meant to happen is the nylon inserts, the end of those is actually meant to be between these 2 washers, which it was not, which is why the inserts are still in the trunnion. So yeah, that was a little unexpected. So I will get those inserts out and put it all back together the right way when I put the new kit in. In terms of how I went not damaging anything while having at it with a reciprocating saw, well, I did okay, but not perfect. There is a little scratch mark there on the trunnion, not too bad at all. And I did, where is it? One side or the other, I think. Oh, there we go. Have a look there. I did scratch the uprights packing plate, but it is not very bad at all, so I think that'll be fine to leave once I clean the upright up. So that's the next job. I'm going to clean that up and give it a paint so that that's all ready to go when I have the bearing sorted out and replaced, so that everything's ready to go back in the car. Right, so on with that. Right, it's the next morning now, and our upright is rust treated. Could do with a little bit more, but I've actually been thinking overnight that this hole here, where the see that against my top, this hole here is elongated from wear, and I'm thinking I might be best to get the MIG welder out and have a go at fixing that up. and here's the finished product. I think it came out pretty well, and I'll just go and clean this all up now and paint it. So that's it for today's video. I'll leave it there, and in the next video hopefully we'll finally get to pulling the bearing out of the hub. So as always, if you enjoyed the video, click that thumbs up button, and if you want to see more of my videos, hit subscribe and ding the bell to get the notifications. Right, well, I'll catch you next time. Bye.